Well, hello and welcome to the official 2024 Christmas display. My name is Alex, creator of the Infla YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be walking you through what is unlike any holiday setup from me to date. The reason for that is this year I have expanded to not just 2 houses, not 3, not even 4, but my entire street upon which I live, consisting of 8 homes, all of which were decked out in jaw-dropping decoration, courtesy of yours truly. To begin with the biggest scene on the street, which I commonly refer to as the Winter Giants, this yard is heavily based on snow, winter, ice, all the themes that would make you feel cold at Christmas time, but doing it in the most fun way possible. The story that is taking place really revolves around this little guy here, the 6-foot mixed media snowman, which as you can tell is pretty out of proportion with the rest of the inflatables in this yard. However, that was done intentionally as I wanted to provide that stark contrast in scale to emphasize how big all the other inflatables are, such as the new 25-foot snowman, new 20-foot penguin, everything else. And also because there's a story taking place, and that is all these giants are welcoming in the new addition of this little baby snowman. Perhaps it's just been born or whatever, but I made sure that all inflatables were pointing to its location so that when you stood at certain spots, all the inflatables were either looking at you or this little inflatable, and I thought it made for a great story. It read well, it looks good, and you've also got icicles on the house to really add to the feel like it's cold in this area, and I love the way this turned out. I believe the only inflatable not looking at this baby snowman would be the 20-foot lounging snowman, and that is to entice people to not drive straight, but instead turn up the street and come see all the magic. And it's also another comedic addition to this year's display. I like the fact that there is that really dramatic shift in scale between all these 20-foot snowmen and 20-foot penguin compared to the little small mixed media version that we have at the front of the yard. Now, because this first house that we've taken a look at accounts for a considerable amount of room on the street, it is the biggest space I've ever had to work with when setting up Christmas inflatables, and I kind of went crazy with it, as we know. But there are 2 houses across from it, including that of my own, which take up the same amount of room. So I'm just trying to give you an idea for how much land that actually was. It's a lot of space, but now I want to talk about the first house which people actually encounter, and that is the Let It Snow house, as I like to call it. I've placed 2 Jimmy kaleidoscopic projections shining on it. You also have the 15-foot Let It Snow inflatable that I got several years ago. It's making a comeback. It is evident that this yard is much more simple than the yard we were looking at moments ago, although it's designed that way. It's supposed to be complimentary of another show that is taking place on my street, and that would in fact be my home. This is the yard that I really wanted to showcase my decorating abilities beyond that of inflatables and lights, but some real special effects that were inspired from my Halloween haunt. I wanted to transform that and use it with my Christmas display being the fog chiller, acting as snow in this particular scenario. I have 10 Fraser firs, all of which are real. Their locations have been randomized to convey that they were in fact planted and not placed, and especially when that fog gets to be quite thick, it will conceal the base that we have for them, and it truly does look like they are sprouting out of the ground, making for a nice natural element, or so one might think. Then serving as an incredible backdrop to this is the garden, which has been there almost as long as I've been alive. I've decorated it by placing wreaths on the front of each column, spotlighting them with a warm floodlight, and then for the 2 entry columns, I've placed lamps on top, which match the full-sized lamppost we have at the road. This is really where I hammer home the theme of this being a Charles Dickens Christmas. There's even an ice skating rink, which I designed using my grandmother's sled. There's also cotton that I've placed all around, and then the ice itself are just 4-foot by 8-foot transparent roof panels I got from Lowe's, 3 of them all in a row, and from a distance, it looks almost like the real thing. Up close, you do see those divides between each panel. However, I am very much pleased with their look, and my favorite part is the reflection of the tree onto the panels themselves. But this immersive winter wonderland does not stop here, as there are several other things worth spotlighting, and I'll start out with the prismatic reindeer, which I bought from Sam's Club. I have 2 sets, meaning there are 6 total, 2 bucks, 2 fawns, and 2 does. If you haven't been able to tell already, I've become obsessed with creating elaborate scenes and magical moments for people to come and experience. And one of my biggest inspirations this time around was, in fact, Harry Potter, particularly the Patronuses. And there's the Stag Patronus, there's the Doe Patronus, and there were 2 scenes that I had in mind that I really wanted to replicate and have people be able to come see for themselves. And these prismatic reindeer allowed me to do that. Not only do they look amazing in the daytime, but at night, if you know what you're doing, you can get them to look a lot like right out of the movie. And so, by not using the LEDs that they come with and instead spotlighting them with a Google Spotlight, this allowed me to customize the light show, so I had complete control of the color, the timing, all the things that I would need to make it look like a spirit had appeared. And so after finding the right shade of blue, I decided that 3 seconds was a good on and off period to feel natural and do something truly unique. Now, that isn't the only trick I had at my sleeves, as for this next piece, I very much needed some help in pulling off. We've wanted to do this for years now, my family included, and finally in 2024, it happened. With the help of the local fire department, we were able to hang a 36-inch, I believe, Moravian star 65 feet up in our oak tree to be the perfect centerpiece, watching over all the magic that is taking place below. It's absolutely beautiful. Some people at first glance even thought it was a real star, which is great because we don't really have a means of getting it down. So from January to November, it will be turned off, and then once December rolls around, it's going to be plugged back in, but the bulb is LED, so hopefully we will not have to spotlight it anytime soon, and it will glow internally for years to come. Moving on to my next vignette, we are back to the inflatables. We've got the 10-foot animated Lux Nutcracker from BJ's Wholesale Club, one of the best inflatables, I believe, of the modern era. There's also the 20-foot Nutcracker, which I could arguably say the same about. Anyways, this house is the Nutcracker training camp. So you've got the 20-foot Nutcracker acting as the drill sergeant. Then there's these 10-footers, which are pretty much the cadets receiving their instruction. They are all lined up in a row. And then you have the larger Nutcracker facing them. You'll notice that the house is nothing but green, and that is to act as a military base. I've got different shades of green as well, so you've got kind of the camo army color scheme. I've included aqua, which is not part of that, but the color, for whatever reason, really worked well. There's a lime green, there's a regular green, so they're all mixed in. It's just to make sure that the inflatables stand out, but that it's not too dark and that you have consistent illumination for the entire property. Up next just might be my favorite scene I have ever done, except for what's in my own yard currently. This is Santa's boot camp, and playing off the idea that the cadets are mid-training, what Santa and Mrs. Claus has them doing is decorating the trees and Christmas lights. These lights are from Home Depot this year. They're extremely popular for numerous reasons. For one, who wouldn't be drawn to a 3-foot tall Christmas light? Also, they have extreme DIY potential, and that's essentially what we have here. I have seen this common DIY of taking giant Christmas lights, making a plug out of a trash can and some wood, and then using drain pipe as the cord. I've done my best to copy that with the help of a friend, but then I wanted to take it to the next level and very much make it my own. And so that's where I've added the 2 toy soldiers untangling the extension cord. I've knotted up the drain pipe in 2 locations. At one of those locations, I've actually drilled out 4 holes to where I could elevate it roughly 7 feet in the air using tomato stakes. I have spray painted those black so it looks like it's levitating or that they are holding onto it, getting all the knots and tangles out at nighttime. In the day, it looks very weird, very sculpture-esque, but at night, it truly comes to life, and I am very proud of the result. I want to let you know as well that the male and female plugs can connect together. Those prongs will fit into those two inserts. So I will be keeping this in mind for future displays, because the reason why the bulbs themselves are not lit up is because I wanted to showcase all the details of both the male and female plugs, and it wouldn't make sense for the lights to be turned on if, in fact, the cords were not connected together. That is why I've opted for mini GE spotlights, so all the details are still visible. However, the bulbs themselves are not lit up, just so that everything still makes sense. And lastly, this brings me to the toy soldier on the ladder. This is something that I came up with kind of towards the tail end of fleshing this whole scene out in my head. I wanted to do something that, not that no one thought possible, but probably no one else would think to do, and that's attach an inflatable to a ladder. All I've done is taken 3 total zip ties or tie straps. I connected one at the front leg of the base fan, and then the other 2 are simply wrapped around each tether attachment. So it's very simple, it's not going anywhere, and it's been really cool mixing inflatables with real life, everyday use objects and seeing it turn out how it did. Then as we move our way further down the street, we will encounter what every North Pole Santa's workshop has to have, and that's some reindeer. So we've got 3 of the 20-foot reindeer from At Home, which first released last year, then re-released. I picked up 1 in 2023, 2 in 2024. If it comes back in 2025, heck, maybe I'll pick up 3. Got to get to 8 somehow. But I wanted to just make it simple, clean, and have them all in a row. I love this particular design. It is one of, if not top 2 or 3, favorite 20-foot designs ever released. I think it's extremely good looking, hence why I have 3 of them. Got them spotlighted. The house has nice columns, which I alternated with red and green spotlights. A very simple setup. However, I think it's very effective and looked really good peeking over what was taking place in the yard we just saw. We have finally arrived at the farthest house down, which I have made sure is a nice contrast to the Nutcracker training camp with the bright green. This time around, it is bright red, and that is to match the color scheme of Santa's biggest helper, aka the 20-foot elf on the shelf. There aren't many inflatables, only 4, and that's been a common theme, as you all have picked up on. There aren't many inflatables per yard. The reasons for that is it's coming from one inventory, being that of my own, and also I really wanted to make sure that simplicity and less is more overrode everything, and I think I can get the best results from it that way. If I can just tell a nice visually pleasing story. What's going on here is you've got the elf making some presents. He's got the stack that he's piled up over on his right side. There's the 2017 Hugging Teddy Bear to his lower left. It is the best teddy bear inflatable ever released. Got it for 75% off when I was about 12 years old, and for me is still one of the greatest sale purchases I've ever made. And then rounding it out, if we are basing it off of our perspective, going back to the left side, would be the 2014 floating animated helicopter, one of the best helicopters ever released from Jimmy. It's a collector's piece for sure. This is also a good time to mention I have replaced every single bulb in all of these inflatables to a much brighter pure white LED. I will post an Amazon link to that in the description for you to check out if you want to make your inflatables brighter. I've also, of course, added spotlights just so that no detail is unseen, but I have been getting a lot of inquiries about how I light my inflatables, and it's time that I inform you all of how I do it. We then come upon the final house in the entire 2020-24 Christmas display, and that's the Grinch. Well, most of my neighbors were very accommodating. It was extremely simple. The approval process was almost next to nothing in terms of what I had to do to get the A-OK to decorate the yards. However, it wasn't a clean slate. Some negotiations had to take place, and that is why there is a lone Grinch inflatable with the rest of the yard being rather blank and dark. The terms were it could only be one inflatable, it could only be in this location, and a Grinch is the only design that could have possibly worked to somehow save what looks like lazy neglection of the rest of the space you have to work with. I think it's extremely fitting. The neighbor actually liked it, and so did everyone else who came to visit the display. And on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this year's Christmas setup. If you are near Brevard, North Carolina this time next year, or for Halloween as well, I invite you all to come and check out what I have created because it really is a sight to see. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. Have a happy new year. Peace out.